09:15 on May 5, 1945, Private First Class Desmond Doss crawled toward the edge of a 400-foot jagged cliff, known as the Meda Escarpment in Okinawa. Below him, the Pacific Ocean crashed against the rocks, but above him, a literal hell was unfolding. 26 years old, a skinny, soft-spoken kid from Virginia, Doss was surrounded by the stench of cordite and death. Thousands of Japanese soldiers were hidden in a network of caves and tunnels just yards away, pouring machine gun fire into the American 77th Infantry Division. As the rest of his battalion retreated in a desperate scramble to survive the onslaught, Doss did something that made his commanding officers freeze in disbelief. He didn't run. He didn't dive for cover. And most importantly, he didn't reach for a rifle. In fact, he didn't even own one. In his webbing, where other soldiers carried grenades and extra magazines for their M1 Garands, Doss carried bandages, sulfa powder, and a small pocket Bible. The arithmetic of the battlefield was simple. The Americans had been pushed back off the ridge, leaving dozens of wounded men bleeding out in the kill zone. The decision for Doss was even simpler. 3 years earlier, his fellow soldiers at Fort Jackson had laughed at him during basic training. They had called him a coward and a conscientious objector because his religious beliefs forbade him from even touching a weapon. His commanding officer, Captain Jack Glover, had tried to have him court-martialed, calling him a liability to the unit. The other men in his barracks had thrown boots at him while he prayed and told him that when the first bullet flew, he would be the first to run. Doss's answer was always the same. He wanted to serve his country, but he wanted to be a conscientious cooperator. He told them, "While everybody else is taking life, I'm going to be saving it." That mindset defined everything about Desmond Doss. The Japanese wolves were hunting in the smoke. They were experienced, camouflaged, and deadly. They knew the Americans were retreating, and they moved in to finish off the survivors. Every instinct told Doss to jump off that cliff to safety. But as he heard the screams of his comrades echoing through the fog, he looked up at the sky and whispered a simple prayer. "Lord, please help me find just one more." He crawled back into the fire. Somewhere in his medical kit was the only engineering gadget he had, a length of heavy rope and a makeshift double bowline knot he had taught himself. He found a wounded soldier, dragged him through the dirt while bullets kicked up dust inches from his face, and lowered the man down the 400-foot cliff to the medics waiting below. Then he turned around and went back into the meat grinder. If you want to see how Doss's impossible mission turned out, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories from World War II. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Doss. Doss checked the area. The Japanese were closing in. He could hear them talking in the tunnels beneath his feet. He had no gun to protect himself, no way to fight back if he was spotted. He was a human shield with nothing but his faith. He found another man with a shattered leg, then another with a gut wound. For 12 hours straight, under constant sniper fire and mortar blasts, Doss worked alone on top of that ridge. He didn't stop to eat. He didn't stop to drink. Every time he lowered a man to safety, his hands grew more bloodied and raw from the rope, but his prayer remained the same. "Lord, please help me find just one more." His tactical awareness was supernatural. He knew exactly how to move through the tall grass to avoid detection. He used the smoke of the explosions to mask his movements. By the time the sun began to set, he had lowered 75 men down that cliff. Men who had been left for dead, men who had mocked him, bullied him, and called him a coward just months before. One of those men was the very sergeant who had tried to get him kicked out of the army. Doss didn't care about the past. He only cared about the one more. But on the night of May 21st, Doss's luck finally reached its limit. During a night attack, a Japanese grenade landed in the hole where he was treating a wounded soldier. Instead of kicking it away and risking the other man's life, Doss put his boot on the grenade to smother the blast. The explosion peppered his legs with shrapnel, tearing deep into his muscles. Even then, he refused to call for another medic to risk their life for him. He waited 5 hours in the dirt, treating his own wounds, until a stretcher party found him. As they were carrying him away, they were attacked by a Japanese sniper. Doss saw a man more badly wounded than himself, rolled off the stretcher, and told the medics to take the other soldier first. While waiting, a sniper's bullet shattered Doss's arm. He took a broken rifle stock, tied it to his arm as a splint, and crawled 300 yards to the aid station on his own. The Congressional Medal of Honor arrived in October 1945. President Harry Truman shook his hand and told him, "I consider this a greater honor than being president." Doss was the first non-combatant in American history to receive the nation's highest military award. But that night, back in the hospital, Doss sat quietly with his Bible, knowing he had 75 brothers who were going home because he refused to carry a gun. The war ended, but the damage to Doss's body was permanent. He lost a lung to tuberculosis and lived in constant pain from the shrapnel in his legs. Most men would have been broken by the trauma, but Desmond Doss returned to his small farm in Georgia. He lived a humble life, rarely speaking about Okinawa. When the movie industry came knocking decades later, he was hesitant. He didn't want to be a movie hero. He wanted people to understand that courage isn't about the weapon you carry, but the conviction in your heart. Schilling had his Frankenstein pistol, and Mad Jack had his broadsword. They were masters of the tools of war. But Desmond Doss was a master of the human spirit. He proved that even in the darkest, most violent corners of the earth, one man without a gun can be the most powerful force on the battlefield. He was the human shield who turned a ridge of death into a mountain of life. Desmond Doss died on March 23, 2006, at the age of 87. He was buried with full military honors at the National Cemetery in Chattanooga. His headstone is simple, but his legacy is massive. He remains a symbol for every person who has ever been told that their beliefs make them weak. He showed the world that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to walk into a war with nothing but your bare hands and a prayer. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about medics who became shields and farmers who became ghosts. Real people. Real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, or Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer, you're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served as a medic or if you've ever heard of the Maida Escarpment before today. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Desmond Doss doesn't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.